Alrighty, hello. Thank you for watching. What I'm going to be doing here is creating my RPG Limit Break 2019 submission video for my run of Final Fantasy Adventure. You can see the information there on the right. This will be the Warpless % category, which is definitely the longer one. I'm going to be playing it on my Super Nintendo with the Super Game Boy. So that's what we'll be doing here. So I figured we'd just go ahead and get started. One note about what I do here in the very beginning, as far as character naming, because it's important for the submission, is I name my characters all just one letter, and that helps because text scrolls in this game, so the less characters it has to write, then the faster it goes. However, for this submission, I am going to have a donation incentive to allow people to name both the boy and the girl in the beginning. It's 4 characters each, so or up to 4 characters for each name. So just wanted to explain that, and I tell you what, let's just go ahead and get started here. All right, should be any second. I'm watching the VOD. I'm just doing my final adjustments, and I'm sure we're going to come up here. Here we go. Okay. Getting started. So here we go. Just 1 character for each. All right. So the run begins with this battle here with what I like to refer to affectionately as Big Cat. It just takes 8 hits. I kind of doofus it there. There's a couple places where you can stand where you'll be just fine. Now, what I did at the very end of that battle, as Big Cat was exploding, was I stood in that position where I was, made sure to face up, so when you swing your sword, one thing, many fighters have fallen from their wounds. Remember that particular word. Anyway, when you swing up, if you hit the explosion, you actually will do damage there, and that's significant because it carries over to the next confrontation with Big Cat, which will happen in about like 20 or so seconds. Okay, now Willie has passed away. Nobody dies in this game. They either fall or they pass away. Now that room that I was just in can be very trolly. There's 2 NPCs walking around, and if they get in your way, then you've got to go through like 4 or 5 text boxes. A big waste of time. All right, so normally he takes 8 hits. We're going to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and then he's done. So getting that hit in the first fight with him while he's exploding saves you a little time in the second fight too. So a bit of a cutscene to start out. The lore here is that our hero is essentially a gladiator for this guy on the left, who is Dark Lord, and he's subject to fights like that all the time. It's very dangerous, and Dark Lord is plotting with this sorcerer here named Julius to go up this waterfall to get to the mana tree, which is what provides life and balance for all of the land. And Dark Lord now understands that there is a particular girl who holds the power to unlock the path upwards the waterfall. So now our hero has been cast over the edge of the cliff and lands here in a random spot, and then this is where our adventure really begins. So, our first objective here is we need to get our gold total up to 140. You start the game with 50, so we need to get 90 here. There's going to be 2 enemies we're fighting here, the mushrooms and kind of these black cat-eared guys. Mushrooms give you 1 gold, and the black cats give you 3. So we want to see as many of the black cats as possible. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back and forth between a few screens here, so that the enemies will respawn, and we can just fight as many as possible to get the money that we need. Now, what I need to do is I need to be extremely careful to not kill all of the enemies on a particular screen. I always want to leave at least 1, and the reason being is that if I kill all of the enemies and then I leave the screen and go back to try to respawn them, they won't respawn at all. So you'll kind of miss an opportunity to to fight those enemies. Not having the greatest luck here with these spots. You're on each screen. You're always going to get at least one mushroom and at least one black cat guy. You obviously want to see 2 of the black cats to maximize the amount of gold that you're going to get here. We're getting pretty close. I'll just go ahead and respawn there. Even though the screen to the right of this one here doesn't have any enemies on it, I can just do a quick back and forth and just respawn the enemies on that particular screen there. You also want to always try to find your way at the edge of the screen. See, I accidentally killed everything there, so we're just going to go ahead and kill everything here. I only need 4 more gold. There's 3, and there's the 4th. So we're done. All right, so now we're going to go up into the town, and we're going to perform the only glitch of the entire run. Now, I'm going to tell you what I'm doing, and then when I'm done, I'm going to explain why I did it and how it works. So we're going to come in here. We're going to buy an iron helmet. We're immediately going to equip it, and then the bronze helmet we took off, we're going to slide over to that slot on the right. Save the game and immediately reset. Load the file back up. Go back into the equip menu. We're going to equip that bronze helmet, turn around, sell the iron helmet we just bought, and go on our way. Now, the reason why we do that is because we're going to glitch the bronze helm to provide about 8 more defense than it normally does. How this works is that, so you have 2 inventories in this game, one for your items and one for your equipment, like your weapons and armor. If for your weapons and armor inventory, you have 12 slots. 2 columns of 6. Now, typically speaking, if you only have 1 item in your inventory, the game kind of expects that to be in the top left slot. However, when we put it in the top right slot and then reset, it kind of corrupts some of the values in the game when it comes to its defensive values, and allows you to allows that equipment that defense value to be increased. Now, the only reason that we buy the iron helmet is because there is no way to take off a piece of equipment in this game just by itself. You would have to replace it with another piece of armor, and that's the first opportunity we get to buy a helmet. So that's why we do that, which is why we turn around and sell the iron helmet, because we don't need it anymore. But then also we need to do a little grinding here to buy some more items. Selling the iron helmet will get us 70 gold back. We need a grand total of 165 gold for the next shop that we're going to hit. So here we're fighting 2 different enemies now. We've got the Rabbites, which is, for those of you that are familiar with the Mana series or the Seiken Densetsu games, you will recognize those. And then there are those kind of black floating imps. Each of them only give 2 gold, but the Rabbites will always die in 1 hit. So we want to try and focus on them. So the next thing we need to do here is we need to go to Bogard. He's one of the Gemma Knights. He is going to be able to help us and this girl that we have obtained with finding out what is going on with Dark Lord and Julius and their nefarious plans. But the important thing here is that once we're done with this conversation, which we're triggered to this point by speaking to him 3 times. That's what gets us to what's going on here. This door is going to open up, and we are going to grab an item called Mattock. What Mattock does is it will break certain walls and rocks. It can be used 7 times before it is exhausted. We're going to need much more than that, and we'll actually get a little more into obtaining more Mattock and why that's important for the run in about 10 minutes or so. So on the way here, this grind is interesting because in the first grind that you do, you're just going back and forth on a few screens, and you just keep repeating that until you get the gold that you need, and then you can shop. Here, you want to try to plan it out such that you get all the gold that you need on the way, so that by the time you arrive at the screen that has the shop in question, you've already got all the gold that is required for what you need to do. So here we go. We're going to use the Matic, and it's going to break away those rocks there, which obviously without the Matic we wouldn't be able to get through. All right, so I've already got 152 gold. I'm actually in really good shape. There are some times where you get to this next part and you got to go back and forth on a couple screens to get what you need. But now I only need 9. Well, now I only need 5, so we're in really good shape. Just in a couple screens here, we're going to need that. We're going to get to that shop. So here it is. 2 things we need to buy in here. The first he is going to offer to sell you right away. It is the battle axe. This is a required item for chopping down trees that are in your way. We're also going to buy a stack of keys here. We're going to get to our first actual dungeon in just a couple minutes, and you need keys to get through a certain section of it. So we just go ahead and obtain those right now. If we wanted to, we could depend on an enemy drop in the dungeon itself to get some keys. That's there's a very small likelihood that you're going to get what you need there. So we are about to make our way to actually in this next screen here we are coming to Ket's house, and there will be some story here. That gentleman is guarding the door. We'll come back to him in a little bit and get him out of the way. But first we need to do an event trigger here. We go into bed. The girl tells us that being able to cure oneself is a good idea and is very helpful. So she gives us the Book of Cure. We now learn our first magic spell. Magic plays an interesting role in this game. There's actually 2 different routes for this. There's what's called the physical build and the magic build. We're going to be doing the physical build here. The 2 runs are very different as far as how you do your leveling, which I haven't really gotten into, but we'll have plenty of opportunity to discuss that. So anyway, the girl is now gone, and we now need to retrieve her. So with her gone, that now allows us to come down to this screen here and clear out all of these kind of alligator warriors. And once we do, it will allow us to pick up the bronze key, which is what we need to get into the swamp cave here, which is the first actual like dungeon of the game. All right, so our first objective here is to focus on killing that enemy that just came up and hit me there. Those are called land leeches. So I'm leveling up here. You'll see it says power, wisdom, stamina, and will. Every time you level up, it's going to ask you which stat you want to focus your bonuses on. With a few exceptions, we are always going to choose power because obviously the more damage you do, the quicker you can kill enemies, and considering this is a speed run, that's usually a good thing. Anyway, those land leeches. The reason why we want to kill them is because they have a chance to drop a Matic item. Like I said, the Matic that we have here, which we're actually going to use to bust open our first wall. You see how this works? The wall just explodes when you hit it with Matic. Is going to be, we're going to need more than what we have currently for the next dungeon. So we come down here to pick up this weapon. This is the sickle. All the weapons behave differently. You're going to have, the weapons we use in this game are going to be swords, axes, sickles, and chains. Oh, and a morning star. They all behave differently as far as, the way that the weapons are swung, the hurt boxes of them, so on and so forth. The sickle, when you swing it, it just swings all the way around you, which is kind of nice. It's going to get ditched once we get our next weapon for the most part, but it is what we use throughout this dungeon here. So those skeletons up there, those drop keys. We only see a couple of those, so like I said, the opportunities to get the keys from them are not very numerous. Another thing to note about leveling up is that it refills all of your MP and HP whenever you do, which is actually pretty crucial in certain spots. We kind of there are a couple places where we know roughly that we're going to level up, and having them and having our hit points and magic points replenished is extremely convenient. I guess not. What? So, these land leeches are being stingy. I haven't gotten any yet. There's only one more screen that has them. So if I don't get it here, I've got two options. The first option is to just press on, and then when I'm done with this dungeon, go back to the shop where I bought the battle axe and the key and buy it there. That detour cost me about 40 seconds. Instead, what I'm choosing to do here is roll the dice, regenerate all the enemies on the screen, and get the Matic here, and hope that that takes a short amount of time, which it does. So I kind of got lucky there. Well, I mean, I got unlucky that I didn't get it on the way. So I'm going to go ahead and equip the key here because I know this door is locked, and having the key equipped allows me to walk right through it. All right. So in this room, we have two trigger tiles. You see, it's what I just stepped on there, and it's the other one on the bottom that I'm about to step on right here. Okay. So the reason why I saved and reset there is because that that bubble, which I cannot destroy, was sitting on the staircase, and that was really unfortunate. When you are, whenever you are in your iframes from getting hit, you are not going to trigger either walking into stairs or doorways, or any kind of floor buttons that you would need to step on. So with that enemy literally sitting right on top of the staircase and with no way for me to destroy it, it was impossible for me to walk down those stairs. So what I chose to do is do a save and reset. Now this is going to be a technique that you'll see me doing in several other parts of the run. All right, so we've killed the Hydra here. The Hydra's a pretty trivial boss. There wasn't much to say. You just wait until he walks up to you. Hit it with your sickle as much as you can. Cure if you need to. You should only need to do it, you shouldn't need to do it more than once. And then it dies. We pick up the fire spell, which we will pretty much never use in this run. But we also pick up an item called the mirror, which we're about to use in a few seconds, and you'll see what that is all about. In fact, we're going to go ahead and just turn it on to our items. We're also going to go back to the battle axe that we had before, and that's going to be pretty much it for the sickle, save for a couple of very specific places where we do need it. So now that we have the mirror equipped, when we talk to this guy here, it turns him into his true form, which is werewolf. We hit it with 2 swings of the axe and it dies, and then we can move on to the rest of the cave here. So now there's another drop that we're going to be hoping for here, and it's from those owl enemies, the one that I killed in the prior room. So you see, there's a skeleton dropping a set of keys. Nice to get that because we're going to need to buy a few more in a little bit, but the fact that I got that from the skeleton means that's just one last stack that I need to buy, and that's going to save me a couple seconds, which is good. Thank you, Nitz. How are you doing tonight? So again, here's another wall where we need to bust through with the Matic. Because I had used all of the Matic in the previous cave, if I didn't have it walking into here, I'd be stuck at this point. So again, we're focusing on killing those owls because they can drop an item called Crystal. Now what the Crystal does is it is a single-use item that fills up your will gauge. The will gauge is that bar that you see at the very bottom of the screen that's very slowly increasing and then resetting every time I either swing my weapon or cast, usually it's Cure. Now the will gauge is significant because the more full that it is when you swing your weapon, the more damage it does. But if the will gauge is completely full, okay, there we go. There's a crystal. Definitely backtrack to pick that up. When your will gauge is completely full, when you swing your weapon, it has a different property. And namely with this chain here that we just obtained, that's what we need the crystal for. You saw what I did was I hit that kind of post on the right-hand side with the chain, and it dragged me immediately to the location of the post. We're actually going to be doing that again pretty soon here to progress to the next part of this tower. In fact, it's on the next screen here. You see we've got a gap with 2 posts on the side. We just whip it, and it takes us right across. So when your will gauge is full and you swing your weapon, like I said, it has a different property, and it's different for each weapon. With the sword, like, you go flying across the screen. If you have the axe on, you throw it. Now with the chain, you whip like normal, except your chain is about double the length that it normally is. Now this is significant because there's going to be a couple of posts where we need to use the chain to whip to get to them, but it's going to be out of range of just a regular chain attack. So you need to have that full will gauge in order to reach it and progress. Now, as you can see here, my will gauge is not filling up very quickly. The more will stat that you have, the faster it fills up. But because we're so low level, it's not going to move too fast. All right, so we found our girl just sleeping in a coffin. We tell her, yo, that's not a good idea. And she says, you're right, I'll just come with you now. So anyway, to finish up with the crystal, when we get to a point where we need to whip across, instead of sitting there and just waiting and waiting for that gauge to fill, we can go ahead and just use that crystal, and it will fill that gauge immediately, and save the first spot where we use it. Having that crystal, I would say, probably saves about 10 or 12 seconds. So it's by no means necessary, but I mean, 12 seconds is 12 seconds. If I could save it, I'm going to. We have one. We'd like to have 2. There's a couple places where you use them. So if we get a second one, great. If not, we're not too worried about it. All right, so there are status effects in this game. Those mice can poison you. Poison is actually a pretty unfortunate status effect because the amount of tick damage that it does is... oh, see, now they drop the Matic, even though I've already... I don't really need it now because I'm about to buy all the Matic I need. I'm about to buy not too long after I'm done with this tower here. All right, so we're just a room away from the next boss. We're going to go ahead and cure up, and we are going to fight the vampire here. Vampire fight is not terribly tricky. He will open up his cape and he will shoot out some bats. However, fortunately, you can kill the bats with your with the whip of the chain. So he always kind of moves in this diagonal pattern here, where he'll start at the top, he'll go to a side, and then he'll either go to the middle bottom or middle top, and then back to the sides. All right, so. Now that we have killed Vampire, we've earned the spell Sleep. We will never use that in this run. In another category of this game, the Wrong Warp category, it is crucial to have the Sleep spell. You use it for a very important portion of the game, but not for this one. So now that we have the girl and the chain, we can move on. We're going to give the sickle a little more love here so that we can clear through this brush. And then it is going to summarily collect dust for about the next hour plus, where we will need it for one particular room, and then that's pretty much it. So you see here why we need to get the chain. We whip our way over here, which is the next part of the game. Can't progress without that chain.
So much for that.
Alrighty. We're going to kill these kind of pig soldier enemies here because they're good experience. But they also have a chance of dropping an item called gold. All right, we're going to drop a safety save here. We got poisoned again. The nice thing about this game and this run, especially in a marathon setting, is you can save pretty much anywhere you want, even like on the screen with a boss fight. So this actually is going to play a crucial factor in several parts of the run, not just for safety, but for doing some tricks here. So we got another cutscene here. This would be a good spot for donations. Basically, what's happening here is Sibba, this wise old man, is going to recognize not just the girl that we have here, but also the particular pendant that is hanging around her neck. The pendant is a very crucial plot device in this game. So she's going to step onto this magical circle, and she's going to have a vision of this woman right here, who she's about to discover is her mother. Her mother is the Mana Tree, the one that's at the top of that waterfall that Dark Lord and Julius are trying to reach. And the Geminites are sworn protectors of that Mana Tree. So it is her and her friend, our hero's responsibility here to make sure that the tree is protected and that Dark Lord and Julius do not gain access to it. And then she disappears. Now, when we went through the Marsh Cave, you might have seen this red mage guy here. We didn't talk to him at all because we don't want to. If we would have talked to him, we could have taken him as a partner, and he would have, quote unquote, helped us out going through the Marsh Cave. He's pretty useless, and the amount of time that you need to talk to him before you can even take him along with you is prohibitive. Well, the red mage wasn't a red mage at all. It was, in fact, Julius in disguise. And now that he has discovered the importance of the girl and her pendant, he has kidnapped her so that he can use her to get up to the top of the waterfall. And he's going to blast us with some magic here, bounce us against the wall, and make his getaway. But before that, he calls us my dear. He does that a few times. It's kind of his thing. So Sibba drags you back into his magic room here and says, "Oh, hey, you're better. Well, let me give you this. It is the heal spell. The heal spell we will definitely be using when we need to, but there is a very interesting property slash programming glitch associated with it, and I will describe it once I use it because it'll make a little more sense when you see what I'm doing with it." So again, we kill those big guys pretty much whenever we see them, because they can give you an item called gold, which is an item that goes into your inventory, and its only purpose is to be sold in shops for 750 gold, which is a very large amount at this portion of the game and makes later sections of the game much easier. Now, we want to kill these crab enemies too. They are dangerous. They can do quite a bit of damage to us here, but they have a chance to drop an item called Nectar. And what Nectar does is it is a single-use item that will temporarily increase our battle power, and that's going to be useful against particular bosses. All right, so we've made our way around here to this shop. We're going to do a few things here. First thing we're going to do is we're going to sell off stuff that we don't need, like the candy. Candy only recovers a nominal amount of hit points. We can sell the pure potions. We don't need the bronze key anymore. We might as well get that out of the way. These cure potions can go too. We're going to get more powerful ones later on. First thing we need to do is buy this oil. That's going to be essentially like a key item for the next place that we're going to go to. We need 4 total stacks of keys. We're going to buy 3 because we already got one in the cave. And then we're going to buy 2 more stacks of Matic because you need 3, but we already got one in that in the previous cave as well. Ah, there's a Nectar. That was fortunate. We're going to save that for a boss in about like half an hour, 35 minutes or so. Dropping a safety save here just in case I die. It is very likely that it could happen. But we didn't, so we're just going to go ahead and cure. Now we're going to equip the battle axe because it's going to allow us to chop through these trees. Now you can only chop through certain trees and have it cleared through. You see, some of them will leave these stumps here. You can't walk over the stumps. But there are going to be specific trees that won't leave stumps, and those are the ones that are designed to be cut down so that you can clear your way through. So this is why we bought that oil. It's a single-use item. We're going to use it right here to loosen up this minecart to go through this section here. Now, we're going to get to a part here that can be a bit frustrating. So in order to get to where we need to go, we need to hit these two switches here in succession. I drop a safety save right before there, just in case I miss them, in case I miss either one, which I've done here a couple times. Unfortunately, you see that you hit them shortly after you come onto the screen, but you cannot mash attack, because if you do, you'll swing too early in both instances, and you'll just end up missing it. So the timing, you need to swing your axe at a very specific time while facing right in order to make it work. And of course, the exact timing for each switch is different. You need to hesitate a little bit longer on the second one than you do with the first one. So if you don't have that save there, you do a big loop and you have to come all the way back, and it wastes about, I don't know, 20, maybe 30 seconds if you miss it. So we dropped the safety save just in case, and you saw there in that case it was a good idea to do it. I mean, those attempts there and the missing probably cost me about, I don't know, 15 or so seconds. All right, so we've seen it in a couple places here, but we're going to see it here. These ice panels that are on the ground. What the ice panels do is when you step on them, they will automatically force you to move in a specific direction, and each ice panel is different as far as which way it's going to send you. So, there are in some places where you need to know which panels are going to send you where, because it's important for progressing through. So just a couple more rooms here, and then we're going to get to the boss of this cave here. In fact, it's coming up right now. It is a fight with Megapede. So Megapede is going to emerge from the right. When I hit him, there's a sound cue. Now, there it is. You can only hit his head. You cannot do damage at all to his body. He always moves in the same pattern, which is nice. There are a lot of bosses that will do that, where they will move in a set pattern, and it definitely helps. Either in a set pattern or kind of like a couple of sets of, a couple of set patterns. But this one here, it's always the same. And that was actually a pretty quick kill on Megapede. If you can get it before it disappears for the second time, then that's a pretty good kill, and I did it well before then. So that was good. All right. So the point of that whole exercise was to get the item at the end there, which was a chunk of silver, which Watts has taken to do dwarfy things with, and we're actually going to see the fruits of his labor very shortly, and the plot devices that are associated with it. All right, so like I said, when it comes to those level ups, I'm always choosing power. At least I have so far in the run. That is going to change with my next few level ups, and I will explain why we're doing that when I get there, because there's going to be some particular leveling that we're going to be doing. So here we go into the dwarf cave. There's Watts chilling there by the dining area. He's taken the silver and made some items. We're going to buy silver armor. This is going to serve two purposes. One, it's going to increase our defensive stat by, how much is it going to defensive by? By 8. But we also need to have some sort of silver equipment that we're wearing, because this next cave that we're about to go through, you saw the other side of it here. Here's the front side of it. If you are not wearing silver armor, the cave will speak to you. It will tell you that you are not yummy, and it will spit you out, and you cannot progress through. So with the silver armor, it decides that you are tasty enough to walk through his mouth, and you can go through it. This cave is very short. In fact, here's the end of it. Once we get through these stairs, We get out onto the other side. And then once we do, we find out that Bogard has followed us. Bogard will join us as a partner, and he will just bumble around and stab his sword comically in random directions. Not very useful at all. All right, so on the screen here with the four werewolves, all conveniently clustered over here on the side of the screen. We're going to go back and forth and reset this screen so that we can kill a bunch of them, and we're going to grind 2 levels up. All right, so now we are not going to select power. We are going to select stamina. Now, what stamina does is it will increase not only your defensive stat, but it will further increase your maximum hit points. For this level and then the next 3 levels after this, we are going to choose stamina. And by the time we get to level 15, that is going to leave us with 59 maximum hit points. Now that specific value is very important because we're going to encounter a boss in about 15 or so minutes named Davius. And he's going to do a lot of damage to us. In fact, he can hit us so hard that he can do up to 58 points of damage to us. So, if we have maximum HP, we will always survive a hit. Okay, here's why we wanted to get the crystal. That whipping post is out of range for a normal attack. So we're going to equip the chain. We're going to get this crystal here, use it right away. That will gauge fills all the way up, and we get that nice long whip, and we can move across there. So that's what the crystal is for. All these other whipping posts for the rest of this section of the game, or the section of the map, can be reached with just normal chain attacks. So, this is now the airship. This is where the girl is being held by Julius. The reason why it's chilling here on the ground is because Julius needs to take a few minutes to refuel it. So we will take this opportunity to infiltrate the airship and get our girl and the pendant back. So you see that enemy up there in the corner, I Spies. That's another that's another familiar enemy if you are a fan of the Mana series. You certainly see them plenty in Secret of Mana. They can be particularly dangerous. They do shoot these rings that can turn you into a Moogle, which normally you would say, oh, that's really cute and sweet, and it's not. Being a Moogle is not fun. So we want to avoid it as much as possible. All right, so we're going to kill a few werewolves. We're specifically going to leave one of them alive. The reason is that in this room here, when we come back to it, there will be I Spies. But if we leave one werewolf alive, they will not spawn. If all of them are killed, then they will. I'm not sure how that particularly works, but I just know that it does. All right, so we unlock this door, and here's our girl. We try to let her out, but this gate, which is half of our body height, is barring us because it's stuck. However, the window here appears to be a viable option to get her out. So we're going to go all the way around to the outside of the airship and bust her out that way. Bogard is going to stay behind and not get in our way anymore, which is fine. We won't miss him.
That would indeed be the dream, Nitz.
Alrighty. This would be another good time for donations. It's basically just walking to where we need to go on the airship.
Ooh, that was close.
Yeah, those ghosts can be problematic. You cannot hit them with your regular weapon. The only way you can kill them is if you cast fire while your will gauge is full. That's the only way you'll be able to do enough damage to harm the ghosts. But because we don't want to wait for that, we usually just try to get around it or reset a room because they can do a lot of damage. All right, so we got a treasure chest here. It could be gold or it could be candy. So it's either
Be gold, be gold, be gold.
is it gold? It's candy. Oh well. Getting gold is not necessary, but it's certainly nice. So,
Way.
but we did not get lucky there. These jars can be crushed with Matic, so we do that to
Yo, what's up?
get through to the next section. Just a couple more screens to go, and then we're done with the airship. We get poisoned again. That's not fun. We've already leveled up. Normally on this screen here with these four little werewolves, excuse me, is a good opportunity to level up, but we don't need to do that. All right, so we made our way out to the outside of the airship. There's our girl. All right, let's go. However, Julius has followed us here, and he has different ideas. He wants the pendant back, but he burns down the bridge in between you and the pendant, which was probably poor planning. So we're able to get the pendant from the girl, but we are not able to get the girl herself. Which is unfortunate, but we must press on, especially since we've fallen from the airship. Falling is something this character does quite a bit in this game.
You doing let's go.
It's thematic. So this girl here is Amanda. She actually, that room in the very beginning when you killed the first big cat and there were the two NPCs walking around in there, Amanda was one of those people. That is our hero. That is one of our hero's good friends. Now she has stolen the pendant from our hero, but we don't know why. So hopefully we will find out soon. So now we have a brief walk until we get into our next dungeon, which is really going to be the first kind of, the first real dangerous and challenging part of the game. Challenging, and you see I'm being very particular about how I'm killing that enemy there, because a lot of the enemies here, especially in this next cave, do immense amounts of damage. Do a little figure eight around those trees, and it opens up the cave here, where we find Amanda, and she explains that she did steal the pendant, and she's very sorry about it, but she needed to do it because the evil Davius kidnapped his brother and wanted the pendant in exchange for him. But in the meantime, Davius has transmogrified her brother and turned him into a bird. So in order to break the curse, the only way to do it is to sprinkle the tears from a Medusa onto him in his transmogrified state, and it will cure him. There is promise of a Medusa at the end of this cave, hence why we are going together to do it. So this, again, this is a technique I like to call save cheesing. Those mummies cannot be destroyed, and they do about 35 damage each time you touch them, which you can see my maximum currently is 51. So I'm basically a two-shot candidate in this cave. These snakes and kind of like shadow puddles are another very problematic enemy set to deal with here.
No, that's gonna get dicey.
We need to menu here to get the key on because this door is locked. Not sure if that... yeah, the mummy got me. So even though I made it through the room, I go ahead and reset anyway because he just bit me for about 30 damage, and I really can't afford that. I had just saved, so the time loss from doing that reset was minimal. So we make this detour up here to pick up the spell of ice. We're going to use it later in this cave and in several other parts of the game. I do not like the ice spell, particularly because of the places where you need to use it. It's for... it's kind of do like these little kind of puzzle, if you want to call them, things. And they can be rather frustrating because a lot of it is going to depend on RNG, which I'll explain when we get there. Alright, so now that we have the ice spell, we can Matic our way up into here. Alright, so we've got this snowman. We can use him to just shove onto this switch, and as long as he's on that switch, that door will remain open. Well, now we don't have a snowman to put onto this switch here to open the door, so we need to create one. Now, here's why this is a bit tricky. it's a bit tricky because um,
Or just it just
so, and what you saw there was kind of an unfortunate kind of programming error, where sometimes even with the snowman on the switches as they should be, it still won't trigger what it's supposed to do. But here's why that room can be problematic. You see, our partner Amanda is throwing daggers. If she throws a dagger, or to be fair, if you use your weapon to hit a snowman, you will destroy it. Now, because Amanda is indiscriminate with the weapons that she throws around,
that's not good either.
she can destroy that snowman despite your best efforts. So this room is terrifying because you've got to move around these enemies here without getting hurt. You see that shadow guy is doing about 40 damage to me every time, and considering we're about to fight the boss, we do not want to have that damage done. It's just this room is not being very nice to me. This is the beauty of being able to save anywhere, because it makes it particularly safe. All right, so here's the Medusa fight. Now, Medusa can only be damaged by hitting the top section of her body. So basically from the neck down, she's invulnerable to your whipping attacks. So we have to position ourselves so that we can hit her in the face. She is shooting snakes from her hair. Fortunately, the chain weapon kills them on contact. So if we position ourselves in the right way, we can basically just whip at her face, and then at the same time, the chain will take out the snakes that she's throwing at us. So that was actually a pretty good Medusa fight. Each time she hits you, it's about 30 damage, so 2 shot and you're done. Also, if she does hit you with one of those snakes, it can stone you, and you'll need to cure that somehow. Otherwise, you won't be able to move for about like 8 or 10 seconds, and that basically means death. Medusa's just going to come up and hit you. So what's happening here is, during the course of the fight, Amanda was bit by a Medusa, causing her to turn into a Medusa. Because we were unable to find any of Medusa's tears when we killed her, Amanda is actually sacrificing herself, shedding tears, so that she can... so that our hero, I should say, can take them back and uncurse her brother. Very noble sacrifice. All right, so Medusa Cave done. We definitely lay down a save because we do not want to do that again. All right, so now we move up a few more screens. This probably would be another good time for a donation or two. Before we get into the next town. Which is going to be right here. And there's a few particular things that we need to do here. The first is come into this weapon shop here. We're actually not going to buy any weapons. We are going to buy gold helmet and gold armor. This is going to increase our defensive value in total by about 8, which is... enough to be able to get our defense where it needs to be to fight Davius safely. Now we're going to come to the item shop here. We're going to go ahead and sell all the stuff we don't need, like these basic cure potions. We don't need the candies. Get rid of those. And all the armor we used to be wearing. So the bronze armor, the bronze helmet, and the silver armor can all go. We are now going to turn around and buy these X-Cure potions. We're going to buy as many as we can. I'm only going to be able to buy 4. You'd like to have... I mean, you pretty much need at least 4. You'd like to have 6, but if you don't have enough gold, then you don't have enough gold. This is where getting that bag of gold from those pig soldiers is really nice, because if you do that, then you're set. You can basically just buy X-Cures until your inventory is full, and you're good to go. So here is that bird, which is Lester, Amanda's brother. We're going to equip the tears that she gave us, and boom. This is Lester. He is a bard. Oh, one thing that I haven't mentioned that I want to mention now is that you'll notice every time I menu, I've got 4 different things that I can do in that menu. I've got item, magic, equip, and then the option on the bottom is ask. What ask does is anytime you have a partner, whenever you ask them, they will do something for you, and every benefit that the partners will give you is different. For example, the girl will cast regen on you. Amanda would cure you from stone. Actually, it Watts, when we were going through the Megapede cave, if you ask him, he essentially will open up a shop for you and you can buy items. We don't need to, so we don't use that. These mages are extremely dangerous. Their fireballs do, at this level where I'm at, I'm pretty sure a fireball would kill me. So we do that save and reset trick to reshuffle all of the enemies in the room. They do not spawn in set places. So by reshuffling it, we have a chance to have them be out of the way so that we can progress. Speaking of out of the way, the ice spies do not spawn like in doorways or in corridors or anything like that there. These mages are being total jerks by spawning right in front of me and immediately shooting fireballs at me. I literally cannot handle that, so I have to just keep resetting the room until I can get through. And finally, I can at least get into the room and move through it. So anyway, to finish up with what I was talking about with the ask command, if you ask Lester to help you, he will quote-unquote help you by changing the background music. That's literally all he does. But what I thought would be cool would be to do a donation incentive for that. I unfortunately died there because these enemies that I'm dealing with here, these kind of flying demons as well as the floating fire, I cannot kill them. The only thing that I could really do to protect myself would be to cast ice on them to turn them into snowmen and allow me to, just walk by them or destroy them if I wanted. But you might notice that I currently have 0 magic points, so I can't do that. And we do need magic points for a particular room in this tower, so we're going to save them for that anyway. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to kill these werewolves because, like I said, I'm going to need magic points, and I'll need them in just a couple rooms. So we're going to save and reset. It's going to respawn all of the werewolves, and we're just going to keep killing them until we get a level up, which, like I said before, is going to replenish our magic points. To finish the thought about about asking and the donation incentive along with it, one thing I would like to do is to list off a few different tracks from the game, of which there are plenty that are really, really good, especially for the Game Boy era, and have people do a bid war for which music they would like to hear as I go through this dungeon. As far as how much time loss that would result in, depending on how lucky I get, getting to the song that we want to hear. I don't know. Probably not too long. All right. So again, we needed to freeze an enemy onto that tile there on the bottom left. Now, much like my worry with Amanda, Lester here you see is shooting those arrows, which in most cases don't do damage to most of the enemies you're going to find in this dungeon, but it'll destroy snowmen. And we don't want him doing that. So luckily he didn't derp his way into costing us time. We're going to do some save cheesing here because that fire can do about 10 or 12 damage to us. We've only got 22 hit points, and with there being so many choke points in this room, doing the save stuff is very important because we want to conserve our resources and make sure we're not doing any curing until we get to the boss, which is actually going to be pretty soon. But we got to equip a key first to get in here. We've done that. All right, boss is in the next, 2 rooms from now. So we're going to go ahead and cure up. We're going to get ourselves to maximum hit points. You see we're at 59 there. We're going to equip that Weir Axe that we went and got. And then we're going to save here because this boss can be problematic. This is Davius. Well, not now he transforms. So, with Davius, what we're going to do is we're basically just going to stand right on top of him, hit him with our axe as quickly as possible, and just hope that he dies quickly. This is why we bought the X Cures, because you can see he's doing a major amount of damage to me. It's at least 40 damage every time, but again, up to a maximum of 58. So as long as we keep ourselves at 59 hit points, as soon as we get hit, then we won't die. Now, the problem with Davius is that if he moves right, he's going to do damage to you right away, and the amount of time and resources that are required to get to that point where you can start to hit him, it's not worth it. So fortunately, he started out by going left, which allowed us to kind of nestle up at the top and then go and approach him and start wailing away at him. So we're going to bid Lester goodbye, but he's going to give us Mute. We never use Mute, the spell. So, with Lester in our rearview mirror, we press on. We're going to want to level up real soon because there are some enemies here that can do a considerable amount of damage to us. These monkeys and seals that you're going to see along the way here are going to be very nutritious when it comes to the experience department. The fish, not so much. Fish are jerks. So the other guys are what we want to see. So there we go. We got the level up we needed. All right. Now, in this level up, we're going to choose Wisdom. Okay. The reason we do that is two reasons. First of all, it's going to increase our maximum magic points from 6 to 8. This gives us 4 opportunities to cast the Cure spell as opposed to just 3. But it's also going to increase our magic power to the point where there are going to be certain enemies that we are going to need to hit with the ice spell in order to freeze them. And if our stat is too low, it's not going to work. So this gets us to just the point we need to in order to freeze them. So we've got another boss fight coming up here in just a couple of rooms. First, I got to weave around these enemies again. See, I got to reset the room. That I Spy, which I cannot destroy, was right in the doorway, and I wouldn't have been able to get through without taking a lot of damage, so we just save it. All right, so this is Metal Crab. Metal Crab has a particular pattern here where he will walk from the center to the edge and then back to the center, and then he will come down to the right, do the same thing down there, walk to the edge, walk to the center, and then come back up to the left. Now, when he's at the top, we want him to move right because he will be directly above us and we will be able to swing our axe and do lots of damage to him. Him moving left so much is very problematic for 2 reasons. First of all, it wastes time. It was just less opportunities we have to hit him. But then the other thing is that because you see we have to cure ourselves every time because he just comes down and does about 25 to 30 hit points of damage every time down. That burns through our resources, and we are definitely going to need them for the next dungeon that the next dungeon and then the beginning of the one after that we get to. So luckily I did not have to dip into any of my X cures. If I did, that would have made the rest of this run extremely tight, extremely tricky. So again, I mean, these mummies here are very capable of killing me at 7 hit points. So we just reset the room as often as we need in order to avoid death. Laying down a safety save here because I do not want to fight Metal Crab again. We were just going to kill some enemies here until we get a level up. Fortunately, I had just saved there, so that death did not cost me very much time at all, which is nice. Forgetting to save is a pretty sickening feeling, so rest assured that should this be run by me during the marathon, there will be saves all over the place, and my estimate would reflect that. So you can see there, I just went ahead and did a safety save, just because I don't want to have to keep dealing with this stuff. Because the time losses pile up if you keep dying and resetting. That should kind of go without saying. But that level up has refreshed all of our hit points, and from this point out, when it comes to what we are selecting for our stat bonuses, it's going to be power for the rest of the way. All right, so this particular section is extremely harrowing for because of those two enemies there, that kind of bobblehead jellyfish thing, and then this rock throwing brute guy who apparently his name is Barnacle Jack. So the Barnacle Jacks and the bobbleheads do quite a bit of damage, especially those bobbleheads. They can hit you for about 50. So we are going to safety save liberally through here and just hope that we don't get touched. Now, killing them, I mean, it's only 2 hits of the axe, but because they can move in such an erratic way, getting close enough to hit them with your axe is pretty dangerous. But so far, they're actually being pretty nice to me here. We only got to deal with them for... In fact, I think this is the last screen where we got to deal with them. And there we go. Alright, so this next dungeon here is a particularly interesting one. It's got 2 bosses in it that can be problematic. So we're going to safety save a lot here. These floating eye enemies cannot be killed with the weaponry we have currently. Those kind of minotaur-looking things can, so I do. This would be another good time for donations. It's kind of just walking around, doing what we need to do. We use an interesting trick here where we just push the treasure chest halfway onto there, hit it with the axe and destroy it, and it triggers some goofy stuff in the game to make you think, oh yeah, okay, cool, you've done what you need to do here. And it opens up the door. Good thing I safety saved there, because I kind of painted myself into a corner and didn't feel like taking that high amount of damage from those guys. So I just reset. So this is the darkness status. This isn't the first time this has happened, but I haven't really mentioned it because it's not really problematic. You can still see where you're going. The only time it's going to be an issue is if there's any room that has water or ice in it. You won't be able to see those tiles. So that can make it tricky. But in the absence of those, it's not a big deal. This room can be very trolly because of what you see a lot of happening here is those that enemy that I can't destroy appearing on that 1 tile wide bridge and basically just blocking my way. I really don't want to take damage from him. So we're going to do another safety save there. Reset. Just to reset the room as I figured I would need to. And here we go. So this boss fight is Cyclops. This is where we're going to use that nectar that we got early on. Now, what I need to do here, because of kind of a programming error, I use the nectar and then I need to menu and equip something else in order for the nectar to take effect. So this Cyclops fight, if you stand in very particular places, he is free. He will not come in contact with you. Because if he does, even at full hit points at this stage, and I believe I have 71 maximum hit points, it's still enough to kill you. Which is why I don't bother to heal before him, because if I have 71 hit points or 1 hit point. Doesn't matter. He's going to kill me anyway. So the safe places to be is in the tile directly below where he's at, and a half tile away from the edge there. You can move back in a way where he will never come in contact with you. Now, from that battle, we got this weapon here, the Morning Star. This is one of the more, if not arguably the most useful weapon in the game. First of all, it is a pretty significant upgrade to your damage output from what you were doing before. But also, anything that you could break with Madoc, you can break now with the Morning Star as well. So basically it makes Madoc obsolete, but not completely. And I'll explain. There are a couple sections where I will opt to break walls with Madoc instead of the Morning Star. And when I get to them, I'll explain why I'm doing it. All right, so we're going to lay down another safety save here. And we got another boss fight. This is Golem, okay? Golem has this pattern here where he will move from the center to the left to the center to the right to the center and so on and so forth. How he does it is random, though. He can either do this kind of, semicircle walk here, or he can charge either straight down or diagonally in the same direction that he was already heading. Now, if you're paying close enough attention, you can actually move around him. That was a very quick Golem fight. He didn't give me much time to talk about it. One thing that... oops, I accidentally go to the map here. I meant to save, and I get to before that fireball hits me in the face. Okay, cool. So you see, we Madoc this rock here. Oh, I'm sorry, we Morningstar the rock here, as opposed to Madoc it, and we go right through. One thing you might have noticed was that when Golem hit me when I was in the corner, I was basically standing on top of him and not taking any further damage. The reason why is that when you are in your weapon swinging animation, the timer, because anytime you get hit, you have iframes for a set amount of time. It's a timer that counts down from whatever value it's at to 0. While you are in your weapon swinging animation, your iframes are still active, but the timer that counts down for them freezes during the animation. So basically, when I get hit, I'm just frantically swinging that Morning Star as much as I can. Even if I'm not necessarily facing him or hitting him, it doesn't matter because it's prolonging the amount of time that I will be invulnerable because of the iframes from the damage that I've taken. So we use this. It was a technique we actually used during Davius. Once he hits us, we want to make sure we're swinging our axe as much as possible. And we use it for a couple other bosses too. We use it on Metal Crab. When he's coming down, we just keep swinging that axe so that he doesn't hit us a second time. And we're actually going to use it on this next boss, which is coming up in just a couple screens here. This next boss is Chimera. Chimera can be a real jerk. So its pattern is it's going to float, like a lot of bosses do. It's going to float from the center to the left, back to the center, to the right, to the center again, and it's going to repeat. However, when it gets to the center, it has a chance to do one of two things. It has a chance to float up and shoot its fireballs, or it has a chance to fly around the room in this zigzag pattern. The zigzag pattern, we want to see as little of that as possible, because that's how he can really do damage to you. But even if he does, we use that opportunity to take the damage, flail around with the Morning Star as much as possible to just maximize the damage that we do while we have the chance. All right, so now that Chimera is done, this is a good thing for two reasons. First of all, we have our girl back. Like I said before, when you ask the girl, when she's your partner, she will cast regen on you. This is going to be very important because a lot of the enemies here can do, and we just saw it right there with that soldier that hit us, did close to 50 damage to us. So having a way to cure ourselves like that, especially for free, is always nice. The other thing that's nice is the drops we're going to get here. So these black wizards are going to drop X ethers, which with only 8 magic points, it's going to completely refill all of your magic. And then these black helmeted soldiers here are going to drop X cures. And, I mean, those are the ones that we bought before, and we know how useful they are. So we want to see as many of these drops as possible, because we're going to need these resources for certainly the boss at the top of this tower, but then for the rest of the game as well. Okay, so I got hit with stone here, so I'm going to cast heal. All right. Now I'm also just going to immediately do some sort of menu immediately after casting heal. The reason why is there is a programming error in this game that when you cast the heal spell on yourself, it reduces your defensive power to 0, which basically means that especially in this tower, anything will one-shot you. Mandatory about 40 or so damage that I have to take there walking over the spikes that surround that. So that can be a very nasty surprise if you forget that those are there and you walk into that room with only about 35 or so HP. You're just going to die right away. So got to remember that. Oh, so anyway, to finish up with the heal thing. Oh, these little twinkle things do they do damage to you equal to your level times 2.5. So right now I'm at level about probably about level 20. So that's 50 damage right there. We don't want that. Okay, finishing up with the heal. For some reason, when you do that menu immediately afterwards, it resets your defensive value. So that's why we do that. Okay, now, this is the other spot that I was talking about where it would be nice to have another crystal. Because so I have to whip my way over here, hit this tile to make that staircase appear. Now I've got to whip my way back. Unfortunately, the posts are out of range. Both of those posts are out of range of my normal whip attack. So we have to sit there and burn a few seconds to wait for it to fill up. Get the X ether there. Another X cure here. Getting 2 drops in one room is pretty lucky. We do lots of leveling up here. So the reason why there's a particular reason why we take I get 3 drops in this room. Wow, that's insane. The reason why we take all the time and care to kill all of these black wizards and soldiers is actually there's 3 reasons for it. One is the drops, which we've already talked about. The second is that they give you lots of experience. So you get some pretty beefy levels here that, I mean, and the more leveled you are, the easier and faster the rest of the game can be. But then the third thing is that they also give you a decent amount of gold when you kill them. And we are going to need gold to buy something as soon as we're done with this. So a little trick here that we use, you need to have all 4 of those treasure chests, which you can destroy with your weapon, by the way, on those tiles in order to progress. Now, the way that you're supposed to do the room is you're very carefully supposed to go all the way around the perimeter, being careful to either, kill those werewolves. So I've gotten so many drops here that my inventory is full. So I just pop an X ether so I can get the X cure instead. I'd kind of rather have that, though I do want to save a few X ethers. So anyway, that room with the werewolves. You can either go all the way around, kill the werewolves carefully, and then get up to the staircase, or you can do what I did, which is push the treasure chest so that you're standing on the top half of that upper right tile. Save and reset, and then when the game loads, you want to wait about half a second before you step off of it, and it's still going to think that all 4 treasure chests are on those tiles, and it will allow you to just pass through that way. It definitely saves a good amount of time. All right. Pretty much, except for this next part. Up to this point, going through, between Chimera and here, would be a good time for donations. But what we're going to need now is we're going to need the ice spell and a save. because we've got another one of these ice rooms here. Now, what we need to do is we need to create 2 snowmen, and we need to get them onto these switches. And that's how we do it. Now, I made that look very easy. I got very, very fortunate RNG to be able to do that. That room will sometimes take me 6, maybe 7 or 8 attempts to get through, because sometimes, you can only free this as soldiers, by the way. So the way that room goes ideally is that you kill all the mages. There will always be 2 soldiers in there, so you don't have to worry about that. And then you freeze the soldiers, and you get them onto the switches, and you go through. Sometimes the soldiers will be piled into the corner. Sometimes the mages will give you a hard time and do stuff here like stone you. Sometimes you'll accidentally whip and kill a snowman, or like you saw in the Medusa cave, sometimes you'll push the snowman onto the switch, as you should, and the game still won't register it. That's happened to me plenty of times in there too. So that room that room has taken me in some runs, 3 or 4 minutes to get through, as opposed to the about 20 or so seconds that it did that time. So there, it was nice to me. All right, coming up next is the fight with Dark Lord. This fight is pretty basic. We are just going to whip him as much as we can. He's going to hit us for about 50 damage a pop, so we've got to be mindful of our HP total, because even at full HP, he can 2-shot you. He hit me already right away. We're going to go ahead and use our Cure Magic while we can, and then after that, we're going to go to the X Cures, which fortunately are plentiful, because the drops coming up to the top of Dark Lord's Tower were very generous. So we're good. You see he is carrying a shield that is not just for decoration. If you hit him from the front, it will not do damage to him, so you want to hit him from the sides or the back. Now, the nice thing about the way that Morning Star swings is you first swing it around your body and then forward. Now, the swings that go around your body do damage. So you can essentially just kind of stand like underneath him, even if you're not facing him, and still swing and hit him. So that's Dark Lord dead. So you think, oh, okay, cool. We've destroyed Dark Lord. He was the one behind this whole nefarious plot. We're going to get our girl and we're going to go home. Well, she's gone. And that's not good. But there she is. So we're like, okay, cool. Hey, come on with us. But she's not listening. She is in a kind of a stupor, if you will, and is walking along. So we chase her down only to find that she's standing here by the waterfall. We want to know what's wrong. Well, here's what's wrong. Julius has her under mind control. And he is going to use his mind control hypnotism to convince her to use that pendant and cast the magic incantation that will cause the flow of water from the waterfall to reverse. The water will actually start going upward, which is going to carry them to the very top where the mana tree is located. Here you go. You see the water change in direction. Up go the girl and Julius. Julius is going to hit us with another blast, and we're going to fall again. So I kind of considered this like if this game were a play, this would be the end of Act 1. And after intermission, Act 2 would open to find our hero here stranded in a desert, only to be found by this chocobo, who is going to pick up the boy somehow. He's going to clip it with its beak and toss it onto its back, I guess. And it's going to slowly walk in here. Now, the chocobo is moving slowly because he's falling, as is the boy. Not dying, falling. I chalk that up to just some quirky translations. So here we see Bogard again, and for the last time, fortunately. He broke his back, so he can't move. But he's going to tell you, you know what, you need to press on. But some self-doubt creeps in, and we kind of argue with Bogard, and then he snaps at us, and we're just like, fine, and we storm out. All right, so detouring here to the weapon shop. Okay, 6,083 gold. I need 6,300, so I'm going to sell this Weir Axe. We don't need it anymore, and we're going to buy the Flame Whip, and that Flame Whip is going to get used quite a bit for the rest of this run. Somewhat lengthy conversation with Sarah here that we have to have before she allows us to go through. This would be another good time for donations. So after she gets out of our way, we move a couple screens to the left here, and hopefully don't talk to this guy, which we do. How much time does this waste? About 6 seconds. Compound that with another 3 that we needed to reset the screen. It's just annoying. So we come into here, we hear this very strange noise, and we see this man who is basically a beard with arms, has retrofitted our bird with... He's basically turned it into a cyborg bird, and he has very aptly named it.
I'd be down to do that.
Did he? Oh, I think he might have already said it. He named it Chocobot. Chocobot is our friend. We are going to use Chocobot quite a bit, starting with right now. So the first thing you have to do is when you see him floating around, you have to go up and approach him, talk to him, and say, yes, I want to take him with me. And then once you've done that, then you can use the ask command to get on the bird, and then you're off. Having Chocobot allows you to do several things. First of all, it allows you to move very fast. It also allows you to move through enemies and take no damage at all. You don't even take any stun. You see I'm just walking through them as if they aren't there. And you can walk on water as well, which is good. So, unfortunately, you cannot attack while you're on the back of the bird. So we have to ask him again. If you ask while you're on him, you get off of him. But now we ask to get up here. But now we get to an area that's totally covered in snow. A little too cold for our pal Chocobot here. So he's just like, yeah, I'm just going to kick it here while you do your thing. And the thing that we need to do here is, after we walk through a few screens, is go into the ice cave. Now, for those of you that are familiar with Final Fantasy games, you know that the ice cave is extremely difficult, and this game is definitely no exception. So I'm taking care to kill a decent amount of enemies on the way because I would love to have a level up like now, because I'm going to be subject to enemies that will do substantial amounts of damage, and in a large number of occurrences in this next cave. So you see, I mean, I'll walk all the way down here. Try not to get hit by them because they do a lot of damage too, so that I can get that level up and make this ice cave a little more feasible. I will admit that Ice Cave is my least favorite part of the game. It's a fairly long cave. It can be very trolly, which I will talk about plenty here. And it can just waste a lot of time. All right. So I was actually pretty fortunate on that room. You have to use the tiles on the left to get through. They will push you in the direction that you need to go. And of course, if you've got a bunch of enemies clogging you up, it makes it difficult. All right. So the trolling begins. I need full will to whip across here. But because those enemies were in my way, I was unable to get through without either taking damage or having to kill them and expend that will. Now, I use a little trick there. Normally you need to have full will to reach that one too, but if you step onto the ice tile and then immediately swing your weapon right afterwards, the whip post the chain hitting the whip post will take effect before the effect of the ice. Okay, now there's a very particular seam right there that I walk across on the ice in order to get through there as quickly as possible. Now I'm going to break a wall here with Matic, and the reason why I'm doing this is because there's a whip post here that is out of range of my regular attack. Unfortunately, that enemy was in a very unfortunate spot, and as I was about to whip, it came up and hit me and knocked me to the right, which is why you saw me whip to the right as opposed to up. And yeah, that wasn't cool. So we're going to take the time to kill these enemies because I kind of hope that they're going to drop some stuff for me. But they don't. Oh well. Got to replenish those hit points. That is important. So these are the two main enemies here. It's kind of these little kind of like tornado things and then the floating eyeballs. The tornado things can only be damaged with the flame whip. The eyeballs can only be damaged with your morning star. So, you know, if both of them are in your way, that means switching your weapons back and forth. Alright, so normally this ice is going to carry me down through a bunch of different rooms, but what we're going to do is we're going to save and reset in a particular spot. If you then hold, as the screen loads, if you are holding a particular direction, you're going to be immune to the effects of ice for about a half a second or so, which is long enough to walk across the ice tiles as if they aren't even there. So that's going to save us a considerable amount of time getting through that particular section. So I have to kind of go around this room clockwise just because that ice tile on the bottom right is just going to keep pushing me backwards and I basically can't progress through it. This room was nice enough to me. You need to get... it's nice to have full will to whip across there. If not, you can kind of do that similar trick where you step onto the ice tile and swing your weapon at, you know, shortly afterwards. And you can still hit it, but that takes a little more time.
Nice. That's basically the start of the second.
Alright, so this next room coming up here can be a real nightmare. And you'll kind of see how it works. So, yeah, I'm just like, nope. So what's going to happen is as soon as I step onto that ice, it's going to zoom me around counterclockwise. What I want to do is I want to try to time it, so that as soon as I get to the bottom left corner there, I can whip up and it'll take me to that post here. Now, what I want to do from this point is the top switch I step on there doesn't really matter. It's that bottom one. I need to step on that seam, and it's going to open up the door below. That room can take several attempts to get through if the enemies are just in the wrong place, they keep killing you, so on and so forth. So, so the fact that only really, you know, I died only once and it took me 2 attempts, is actually not all that bad. It's not good, but it certainly can be much worse, I think is the point I'm trying to make. Alright, so this screen can be pretty horrible because it forces you in that zigzag pattern along that ice, and there are enemies floating through there, and you're literally defenseless against them. You're not going to one-shot them with the swing of the weapon. It's basically just going to thrust you into damage. Same thing here. It's going to push me all the way down to the bottom of the screen, and if there's an enemy in the way, I'm getting hit by it, and I don't have a choice. So,
That was unexpected.
we're actually pretty close to the end. We've gotten through most of the dungeon here. We're going to do the trick again. I just happened to save right before I got hit there. That might have actually killed me. We do the save and reset. because it allows us to just walk right off of the ice as opposed to go all the way up around and come back, which wastes a decent amount of time. So saving time. That's what the speedrun's all about. Again, got to wait for the wheel to fill up because that whipping post there on the left, we need the full wheel for it. Got very lucky I didn't get hit by that thing. That probably would have killed me too. So, hey, let's hear it for good luck. Alrighty, just a couple more rooms here until we get to our boss. Fortunately, all these posts can be hit with the normal whip, or with a normal attack, I should say. Alright. So this is Carrie, well known for being the protector of ice. Don't ask me why she's an ice elemental enemy in this game. She moves in a very specific pattern too. What I'm doing here is you see when you swing your whip, before it goes out in front of you, you see how he throws it behind him real quick. That has damage properties too. So I stand at the very top of the screen and I face upwards, and the backswing allows me to hit her and avoid any contact with her. So Carrie goes down pretty easily. We get the ice sword for that, which is going to be important for a couple dungeons coming up. We definitely laid down a safety save, so we don't have to do any of that again. And we press on to what can be a very problematic next section of the game, and this run certainly demonstrates that. I think the biggest this next split is definitely my biggest trouble spot in this run. It improved greatly after that, which is nice, but you can see just how unfair this game can be coming up here. So we go back the way that we came, you know, going through all the snow here. We will be reunited with Chocobot soon. In fact, there he is. Or she is. A gender is, I don't think, ever specified. Alright, so I get a lot of amusement out of this trick here, which is very minimal. We're going to turn up and swing, and we're going to hit all three of those trees there, and you need to clear all of them in order to get through there. But instead of hacking at them one at a time, if you get down to that bottommost tile where you're standing there, and you essentially press up and attack simultaneously, you will swing. You will be in a position to swing your axe upward in a way that it will hit all three trees. Saves a couple seconds. I just really enjoy doing it. I don't know. I have fun with these kinds of things. All right, so we meet up again with Sibba, from who we saw earlier in the game. He gives us the Key of Bone, which we will need to enter the next dungeon that we're going to be going to, which is the Kraken's Cave. A particularly delightful section of the game. All right, so this is a big, long trip with the bird. This would be another good spot for donations because there's just a lot of just overworld traversing that we do here. It's several screens. So we basically just watch the birdie run.
Which is a gold split.
So yeah, not too much to say here. We leave the snowlands, and we're going to go to kind of a desert-like area. So extremes when it comes to climate, I suppose. That's a shop that we just skip. We don't need. More running across water with our bird. Take a little detour to go into this river. So this enemy set here, these kind of flying manta rays, and then what are actually disembodied griffin claws. These things do a ton of damage and have a really bad habit of getting in your way like they do there. That's much more favorable. So we just need to jump off the bird real quick, whip across, and then immediately get right back on him. No, not equip. Well, we do equip the Morning Star. We do need to do that, but get back on the bird. This allows us to move quickly and safely to our next spot. where we'll be using the bird off and on. So here we go. So these kind of floating pine cones are can only be destroyed by the Morning Star / Matic. So we're going to need to disengage our bird at various points in order to clear them out. Because like I said before, unfortunately you cannot swing your weapon while you're on the back of the bird. If you could, this section would be 100 times easier to deal with.
Oh, go away.
Yeah, unfortunately that guy is not. There we go. As soon as we see him move away, we know it's safe to get off. So we're almost to the Cave of Kraken here. Not much further to go. Again, this would be a good time to rattle off plenty of donations. So it's always nice to have those types of times spread out intermittently throughout a run in a marathon setting. All right, here we go. Into the cave we go. First, we need the bone key on. All right. This cave isn't particularly long, but there is one room specifically that can really give me trouble, and give me trouble it does in this run. So you'll see what I'm talking about. I believe it's the next room here. Yep, this is the one. All right. So what I need to do is I need to hit the switch on the top. It's going to create a bridge here. And then you hit the switch on the bottom, and it opens that door. All right? No big deal. I've taken a lot of damage here. That's not good. But at least I laid down that safety save. Well, unfortunately, I'm going to take 2 fireballs to the face and die. Now it's going to respawn me here, but the door's closed. Now, I die again. And see, I kind of short circuit because I'm so used to stepping on both switches, but I can't get back to the other one. But it takes me a second to realize, oh, wait a minute, I only need to step on this one to get through. And then I do. So this wastes a good amount of time. And that was, I mean, a lot of that is my fault, and I kind of feel that's slightly embarrassing. But, you know, the run continues. Except I derp and I have to do this again because I took a lot of damage there. So here we are again. We will get through this eventually, I promise. There is more of the run coming. These little fire-breathing seahorses typically don't give me that much trouble. But in this particular run, they just did not feel like being nice. All right. So this boss fight coming up here, this is Kraken. This is one of the more annoying boss fights in the game. You need to have full hit points. We use the flame whip here. So here's how Kraken works. Kraken's going to sit at the bottom, and it's got these 2 tentacles that it, first it does a little boogie, and then it swings up and hits you for about 90 damage. So the property that I was talking about before, where when you're swinging your weapon and it saves your iframes, casting the cure spell does the same thing. So you're going to see that I'm going to cast the cure spell and continue to whip, and he's going to stick. Oh, okay, so he did hit me a second time. Now, if he hits me a third time, I'm done, like there. But you saw after the second hit, just because I kept swinging my chain, see right there, as I'm casting the cure spell, he just stabs right through me and does no damage. So if he hits me a third time, I can't take it. So I've got to hope that he just kind of sits there and does this little dance. I'm sure if I get my run in, my couch will be doing this behind me, boogieing along with Kraken. You just hope he doesn't hit you 3 times. If he does, you just got to reset. Rather trolly. So, now we're done with this, and now we get into Iflit's Cave, which can be another very tricky one, and it's also got a kind of a quirky, another quirky kind of trick that we do here to get through a puzzle kind of floor tile room. So now we're going to use that ice sword that Carrie was so nice to give us. That's going to help us take out a lot of the enemies in here. All right, so what's coming up next is another ice tile room, or another ice switch room, and it's also going to be the very last time that we use the sickle weapon, and you'll see how this works here. I have no magic points. I need to use those X ethers. Thank God I had enough of those. Otherwise, I would have to grind another level to get my magic back. All right, so you see we've got these tiles in the upper corners, but they are closed in by these brambles that we need to use the sickles to kill. So again, what we'd like to do is to get the mages out of the way. Freeze the soldiers, push them onto there, and get up there. Again, I did that room in the first try. That is very uncommon. That room, that's probably the trolliest ice room in the whole run. So the fact that I was able to do it very quickly was delightful. But in the average run, it takes several more attempts. So this is lava here that we have to step across. It's going to do roughly 80 damage to us, so you need to be prepared for it. Which is not a lot of fun considering that, the rooms that you're doing before tend to do a lot of damage to you as well. I'm going to go ahead and bust through here with Matic. We do this because I still want to have my ice sword equipped, so instead of having to menu twice to equip the star, break the wall, and then go back and equip the ice sword again, I just do one menu to bust through with Matic and save myself a little bit of time. Unlock my way through here. I'd say we're over halfway through the dungeon here. This would be a decent place to do a donation or two. Oh, here we go. Here's our first instance of Moogle. You have to be extremely careful when you're Moogle, because like I said, it reduces your defensive value drastically. So, especially with how much damage the enemies in here can do, we definitely want to be careful with that. All right. Again, we're going to put the star on because it's going to do a good amount of damage to these black wizards and soldiers. Maybe we'll get some drops, and we do. So we're happy about that. Can always use more X cures. You don't really need room in your inventory for anything else in the game. So that was basically just 60 or so free hit points I got to heal. Okay, now. This ice room here. We've got a nice little trick that makes this easier than it should be. So you see we've got 2 tiles that we need to have snowmen on in order to... I reset there just because I took about 60 or so damage. I didn't feel like doing that. So we have 2 tiles here that we need to have snowmen on in order to progress. Well, we're only going to do 1, but we're going to make the game think we've done 2. We saved the broadsword for this very reason here. We're going to push the snowman all the way into the corner. We're going to stand on the bottom tile, face left, swing the sword, which is going to hit the snowman and push it to the left onto the other tile and trigger that one as well. So instead of having to put 2 enemies on there to freeze them, which can be very complicated to do, we're only going to do 1. All right, so this is a fleet. This is basically his pattern here. He will move back and forth and can do this kind of like floating fireball pattern here. He can do this. He can chain together these fireball patterns an indefinite number of times. I've actually done fights where he has done nothing but that fireball pattern. Also, hitting him when he's in that fireball pattern is very particular. There's only about a half tile on the bottom right portion of his sprite where you can hit him. So the way that I walk and the timing of the sword hits are all very calculated, and I know exactly where they're going to be. So as long as you stay in the right places, walk where you're supposed to walk, Fleet is fairly free. Hits you for about 80 damage if he does get you, so certainly you want to avoid that. All right, so we're going to go back pretty much the way we came here with our bird. Again, like I said, we have to get on and off him at various spots so that we can whip our way through these floating pine cones. Again, this would be another pretty good spot for donations, because we're going to get to a point here where we're going to be done with the pine cones. We got one more whipping post to hit, and then we're on the bird all the way until our next destination. So, oh boy. Oh, bless me. Sorry about that. So we've got this whipping post here. Again, enemies crowding it in a very rude fashion. We're going to whip across and then immediately get back on the bird, and off we go until we get to the entrance of the next cave we need to go into.
Even with all the goofy shit that happened in
So, again, another good time for donations, because the rest of the game is fairly intense. So making sure that we're focusing on the run would be kind of important. There'll still be some spots, but it definitely ratchets up from here. All right, probably about another 10 or so screens to go from this point. Let's see here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, a little more, 9, 10, 11. Here we go. Now we've arrived. All right, so this is Lich's cave. This cave itself is very brief. In fact, I think it's only 2 screens. It's this one here. He's out of the way. These enemies are actually in a really good spot. Normally they like to float all around that staircase. And then here's the battle with Lich. Lich is going to move in the same pattern every time. I've already got the Flame Whip equipped. I didn't need to do that menu. Save is a good idea, though. So he's going to kind of move in this figure 8 pattern. He's going to go back and forth twice, and then he's going to go up, and then he's going to come back, and more figure 8. Contact damage and damage from the skulls hit you to the tune of about 110 hit points. It's some of the most single hit damage that you take at any point in the game. So it's a fairly nerve-wracking fight. It's probably one that, if I were to be running this in the marathon, I would likely ask for serious time. So the reason why we fight Lich is because doing so nets us the spell Nuke, which we will use exactly once, and that's going to be in about, I don't know, 15 or 20 seconds. And you'll see what it is and what it does. On this right crystal here on this screen, we are going to cast Nuke on it. Cast Nuke. There we go. It's going to blow it up, and it's going to allow us to get into the next cave here. All right, so there are these snail enemies all over the place. The snails hit you for about 60 damage. Not sure why snails would be so strong, but they are. And then there are these mirrors here that shoot out images of you in your damage animation, which I find to be pretty blatant trolling, but I don't know, whatever. All right, so these we saw those tiles on the ground that have the circular pattern in them. They behave a lot like ice blocks. Oh, this is my favorite room in the game right here. I never screw that room up. There's also never any enemies in there, so you just walk straight up. But we walk around here. We already grabbed the dragon shield. In this next room to the left here, we are going to grab the dragon sword. Both are going to be crucial items for the rest of the game. Dragon sword mostly for the final boss, but the dragon sword will be for pretty much every boss that we fight from here on out. In fact, we do use the dragon sword for every boss for the rest of the way. Except for once we get our final weapon. Then we use that, because it's our final weapon. I Spies were extremely nice to me this run as far as their placement, so that is good. Sometimes they can be very rude. Alrighty. I think it's just a couple more rooms. Nope. Okay, so the next room here is going to have our next boss. Lay down a save there just because I'm in a precarious spot. Alright. We're going to take this opportunity to heal up. Well, first of all, to equip our dragon sword and shield. We're going to save. We're going to get our cure magic on. And then we are going to fight the mantis ant. You'll notice that this room is surrounded in those sparkly things, which is one of the things that makes maneuvering around in here very delicate, because those things do about 80 damage to you here. And you notice that they're even right in the doorway. You have to be prepared to take that damage as soon as you walk into the room. You cannot avoid it. The mantis ant also is an interesting boss in particular because it's one that you see often in the Mana series. In particular, I believe it's the first the first boss that you fight in Secret of Mana. So again, we got to prepare to take about 85 or so damage walking out. That was actually a really good mantis ant fight. Just like many other bosses, he floats from center to left to center to right and back and forth. You don't want him to dive just because that takes longer. You can do mass amounts of damage to him when he's just hanging out at the top of the screen. But you do have to be careful of him coming down to get you, because he'll hit you for about 80 damage. So, all right, so we're going to take our Chocobo for one final ride before we get to the last two towers, really, of the game. So this is the Tower of Dime, that's just going to take its sweet time, coming up out of nowhere in the middle of the desert. And we will enter it eventually. I promise. I promise it has a door. Ah, there it is. Okay. In we go. When you walk into the Tower of Dime, you are immediately greeted by this robot named Marcy. He will join you as a partner. Without question, Marcy is your most useful partner in the game, because when you ask him, he will completely refill your MP, which makes getting through this tower very safe, because you can basically just ask and refill your MP, cast Cure 4 times, ask and refill your MP, and you're just good to go. And you can just rinse and repeat. He also shoots lasers, which do a pretty good amount of damage to enemies and the boss alike. So when he is on point with those lasers, it's a big help. He also speaks in all caps, so he's got that swag going for him too. So we're introduced to these enemies here. I don't even know what those... There's the duck soldiers there, and then I don't even know how to describe those other ones. They're like eyeballs under like a trash can lid or something, and they're like frothing at the mouth. I don't know. But we're also introduced to these guys, the flying swords and the flying gauntlets. The flying swords are the ones to really look out for, because once they get onto either your X or Y axis, they will charge at you and do a decent amount of damage. So you just have to be very mindful of them. I don't like seeing these things all the way across the screen, because I know they can just jump out and get me at any time. So I just play that cautiously. Because just because I can cure all the damage I want to doesn't mean I want to take it. Alright, I get moogled there. That's really unfortunate. I certainly want to be careful that I don't take any more hits, but I also don't want to just sit around doing nothing and wasting time, because, hello, this is a speedrun. Alright, so, brief detour here to pick up the dragon armor. That's going to help quite a bit for the rest of the game. You see, I just took about 70 damage there. No big deal. Cure, 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 cure. Hey, Marcy, fill me back up. No sweat. We're good to go. So that whole exchange probably takes about 8 or so seconds. Here we equip the dragon armor. One last ride with the battle axe. We've got the easiest ice room in the game. These enemies are just stuck here on these tiles. So we clear out those 2 trees in the middle. The ice spell... Oh, I didn't mention this before. When you use the ice spell, as soon as you cast it, you can completely steer the flying icicle in the air. So there's going to be the very last ice... Oh, no, I'm sorry. The second to last ice room that we need to deal with will really demonstrate precise ice steering.
Thank you. Nice.
Alright, so here is our boss. This is going to be Garuda. So the pattern here is that Garuda will sit up in this left corner, swoop down to the bottom, go back up to the other corner. Sometimes it'll shoot out these feathers. If it does, it's just a waste of time. The feathers also do insane amounts of damage. Luckily, you can destroy them with your sword. So we get those out of the way. If Marcy is feeling particularly helpful, he'll just sit there and just pile a bunch of lasers into Garuda's face, which is nice. That was a really good Garuda fight. Garuda typically isn't very dangerous unless you just goof around and you keep getting hit by feathers. But other than that, Garuda's not too bad. All right. So the tower's collapsing. Oh no. We can't get across there, but Marcy's going to give us a boost, and he's going to throw us over to the other side. And now that we're good, we encourage Marcy to jump.
Which is funny.
But Marcy, being the noble robot that he is, he will encourage us to save the world and remind us that this tower is indeed his home. He was created there, and he will be destroyed there. This is usually the part of the run where we press F to pay respects to Marcy, because unfortunately we do not get to see him again. I'd love to have him for this next section. It would make it so great, but can't always get what you want. Alrighty. So you might recognize this from the very beginning of the game. That's the tower we came out in the very beginning. And then here is the reverse waterfall. We are going to go up the waterfall ourselves so that we can climb the Tower of Mana, which is the last, proper like dungeon or level of the game. And it's very long. There's 3 boss fights, and it can be very precarious. You're going to notice me laying down a safety save right here because ninjas. Ninjas are total jerks. They do a lot of damage. They like to jump around and avoid your attacks. They throw those ninja stars, and they do something that some other enemies have done, but ninjas, and there's some floating heads that will do this here that we haven't really talked about. They can basically teleport at will, without warning, to any other spot in the game. So that ninja dropped an elixir. There's a chance that he could drop samurai armor, which increases my defense by another like 10, which is actually pretty significant. All right, so here we go. So we got a dragon fight here. This dragon fight typically isn't too bad, provided that you don't actually touch the dragon itself, because if you do, you're looking at about 90 damage. The fireballs themselves, though, only do about like 12 or 15, so if you get hit by a couple of those, it's not a big deal. That dragon goes down pretty fast, which is good.
One down. That's good.
All right, so 1 dragon down. There's 2 more to go. These are the floating heads that I'm talking about. They can just teleport to anywhere on the screen at any time with 0 warning, which can be very problematic. Alrighty. Some more snails and mirrors. And we got these teleport pads here. You see that ninja did what I was just describing, doing that teleport right onto there. Of course, I'm in iframes, which means that I can't step on it until I'm done with them.
Julius the Third is the final split, yes.
Alrighty. This actually would be a good spot for donations. There's not much. There's just some fairly uneventful walking going on here. That ninja tried to jump into me because he is a butthead. Luckily, I avoided him. Alright, so here's where you're going to get a demonstration of steering the ice. We got to go up and around and up, 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 up. So once that first guy's frozen, we can go through and get the other one. If the Minotaur on the right feels like being a bro, it'll actually walk over to the right, and you'll only have to freeze the one that's trapped on the switch. Doing that, as opposed to having to freeze both, probably saves about like 8 or so seconds. All right. So this is, you'll have to take my word for it. This is the red dragon. I know we're playing a game in black and white, but this is a red dragon. I promise. It is the exact same fight as the previous dragon, save for it probably has about double the hit points. So it is a little longer. So this is the pattern that we do here. It's going to kind of do a half circle around the screen, and it can continue to do the full circle, or it can kind of double back.
Oh boy. Okay, I'm going to just to be sure. Oh my god.
So you see, I made contact with the dragon, did about 70 damage to me. Fortunately, that's a low roll. I happen to have an X cure still sitting in my hand, so I used it and I didn't die.
That was incredibly close.
Lay down the safety save because we don't want to do that again. All right. Whoops. Need to walk up. Walk up, Bonnie. All right. Yeah, definitely time to do some curing. Because those ninjas usually hit you for about 40 damage each. Luckily, that random teleport took it away from the teleport pad that I needed. Which made getting onto there faster and safer.
Oh my god, really?
you need to hit them the heads like 3 times in order to destroy them. So usually it's best to just avoid them as opposed to killing them, just because it's faster that way. Alrighty. Only a few rooms left in the Mana Tower itself before we confront its final boss and then move on to the final section of the game. So this here, so this is why we needed this is why we needed that wisdom boost, is because we need to freeze a ninja to push on to
Hello.
it's this tile right there. It's the one on the left, second from the bottom.
Okay.
So that's the last ice room in the game, thank goodness. Just because ice rooms are the bane of my existence for the speed run, so we are done with them. So you see here that you saw the screen, the palette change color. I'm using a Super Game Boy to run this, and if you press it's the X button, it will switch the palette back to the default. Having that elixir made that really handy because it fully filled my hit points and magic points. But anyway, if you hit X, it'll switch it back to the defaults when I jam my controller, because the game allows you to do soft resets. I'm never hitting the reset switch, which is good, because if I had to do so, it would have to do the whole Super Game Boy startup thing again, and that would just be really slow. So when I did the soft reset, which is done by pressing select, start, Y and B all at the same time, I must have hit the X button as well. And then if you hit the X button again, it'll take you back to whatever setting you had it on before. So this is the dragon zombie. It follows a very set pattern where it'll move to these 4 different spots, and then it will charge forward. Now the only real variation is whether it's going to do a short charge forward or a long charge forward. We always wanted to do long charges forward because that allows us to stand underneath him and swing our sword above our heads and do the maximum amount of damage safely. Body contact with the dragon zombie hits you for about 90, so you certainly can't take much of that. So there's really just a few more screens here before we get to the final bosses of the game. But before we do, we walk up here and we find the girl's mother, who is very proud of all the things that we have done. We have proven ourselves well, and she is going to give us the Excalibur. Most powerful weapon in the game. We go ahead and equip it right now, because why not? One more screen with enemies before the bosses. And fortunately, it is far enough away that it's not going to get us. Cure up to the max. And then here we go. Here's the mana tree, and then here's also the girl and Julius. So Julius is now going to show us his true forms. He's in 3 phases. The first one is coming up right here. This is by far the most scary of the 3 forms. He splits into 3 copies of himself. He can teleport at will. He very rarely takes hit stun from your sword, and body contact with him hits you for about 80 damage. His shots only do about like 12 or so they're not too big a deal. But hitting him is bad. Now, the reason why I deliberately took the time to build up my will and kill him in this fashion will become apparent right now. This is Julius' second form, like right away. He always appears in the middle of the screen. Now, if you just happen to be standing there or even over to the right when you kill his first form, Julius is going to contact you for about 80 damage. So you don't just want to get ripped by that right away. If you're doing that full will sword attack, you are invincible during that, and you'll also do some free damage to Julius too along the way. Yet again, another boss who will float from the middle to the left, back to the middle, to the right, and back to the center again. Now, a couple things to note here. When he does his charges, he will typically charge forward. However, if he is charging from the left or the right side, he can actually do a diagonal charge to the middle. He will not charge diagonally from the center. So as long as you know where to stand, that fight isn't too much of a problem as long as you concentrate. All right, so we've defeated Julius 2. The fight with Julius 3 is going to be coming up in a second here, and so is time. So this is Julius 3. He's going to disappear and reappear in spots all around the screen. Where he appears is completely patterned. It's the same way every single time. So you're going to see that after he disappears, I'm walking to particular spots in anticipation of where he's going to be. We pick up the dragon shield for this reason here. We can block his shots with our shield. Making contact with him does about 90 to 100 damage. So we want to avoid that if we can. Sometimes we just walk right under him and wait for the shots to go by and just wail on him. Other times we wait for them to hit our shield and then just hit him. All right, he's dead, and as soon as the tree explodes, that's time. And there you go. That is Final Fantasy Adventure. So to give you a little bit of the story here at the end, the tree gets destroyed in the process of killing Julius, and without the beloved mana tree, the land will plunge into chaos. However, our girl here, at the behest of her mother, is encouraged to actually become the next mana tree because she is a descendant of that mana family. So that's what she does. She becomes a tree. And everyone lives happily ever after, ? With your girl that you've been spending all this time fighting for and protecting to become a plant. Another thing to note here, I don't think I mentioned this here. This was a PB of nearly 4 minutes, save for all that goofiness that happened in Kraken's cave, and a little bit of stuff in I want to say it was Medusa's cave. Oh no, it was in the Cyclops cave. This is a really good run, and one that I've been practicing for quite a bit to get a run to this point. Yeah, you're seeing here I lost over 2 minutes on that Kraken split, but then made it up and then some the rest of the way. So, but this game can be volatile like that. So I'm actually kind of glad that got demonstrated in this run, because there are plenty of places that will just give you fits, and you just got to roll with the punches. And fortunately, I was able to do that for the most part in this run. So yeah, but this is Final Fantasy Adventure. Like I said, the donation incentives that I would like to submit for this are naming the hero and the girl, just for knowledge's sake. By default, the hero's name is Sumo, and the girl's name is Fuji. But I sincerely doubt those will be the ones that would get used if this gets in. And then there's also that one that I wanted to do where you would ask Lester to play a particular tune, and I would probably come up with a list of maybe like 3 different background musics that would be available. I'd have to go in and see exactly what music he plays. I don't know off the top of my head, but there's some pretty good ones. So that would definitely be a worthwhile one too. I think it would be
I was all up in my own feelings, as they say.
to see what people would want to hear there.
Yeah.
So here we go. We wish goodbye
No, I was
to
frazzled.
the girl and her mother, and
Boy, I'm really glad I held
we
it
go to
together.
darkness, and then we assume that she becomes a tree, and we see it in the very end. I guess I'll let the credits run if you want to see all of that. Um, but yeah, I think this would be a really fun run to have in RPG Limit Break because it is a fan favorite. There are a lot of people that really enjoy this game. I think it's probably one of the better Game Boy games, let alone RPG, but just games, period, that was made for the system. Um,
I think it was Lisa that asked earlier if I was going to submit
there's certainly a lot of nostalgia for this because of its beginnings for the Seiken Densetsu series and the Mana series and whatnot. So there's that as well. Plus, I mean, it's just a fun game to watch. There's a lot of action. I mean, there's tons of boss fights. So you got to be tons of very dangerous boss fights. So the strats and the concentration that you need to have a good grip on in order to fight them are what make this run a lot of fun to do. Honestly, I really do enjoy this run for all the difficulty that it can give me. But it can be very rewarding. I think that's probably the best way of putting it is the rewarding feeling that you get when you lay down a good run. Is pretty cool. So yeah, I would love to demonstrate it on the big stage for RPG Limit Break. So with any luck, that will happen. So I hope you enjoyed watching this run. I hope you enjoyed the commentary, all the explanation, everything that's going on here. I have a feeling I would be able to line up a very solid couch for this game. There are some notable members of the RPG community that will likely be in attendance at RPG Limit Break that would give some great and entertaining insight into the run and the game itself. So that would be cool to be able to do for that reason as well. So credits are almost over. At which point I think we will wrap this up for good, and allow you to get to what I'm sure are many other submissions that you need to consider. But I want to thank you for watching all the way through this one and giving your consideration to this, and to myself as well. So yeah, it's very cool to be able to submit to this run for the first time. This will be my first time submitting. This is one of 2 runs I'll be submitting, but first time that I've done it for RPG Limit Break. Despite attending for the last 2 years, I've never submitted anything until now. So I am really hoping I'll get the opportunity to do some runs for such a great charity and such a great marathon that I enjoy very much. And the end, there's our girl. She has begun to sprout, and pretty soon she will be a full-on mana tree. All right. So that's going to do it for me here. Again, I'd like to thank you for watching all the way through. I do hope you will give this some good consideration. It would be great to showcase this for RPG Limit Break 2019. So hope to hear from you all soon. And until next time, take care, folks.